So the most important part of a gaming PC is going to be your GPU. So it's no surprise that anytime we get a little bit of a hint of what's coming out in the next generation, everybody goes crazy. This time it's AMD's turn to give us some spicy tidbits in the way of possibly a 5900 XT, something to possibly compete with Nvidia's 2080 Ti. So let's talk about what we know now and what's likely to happen. Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology here. Thank you for joining me for another video. If you like my content, please subscribe, smash that like button, leave a comment below. What GPU are you most looking forward to? All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty of what we've been hearing. Generally, I don't really like speculating on rumors, but when it comes to GPUs, there are certain things that happen in the normal trajectory of product life cycles that make a lot of sense to talk about. Why are we looking to AMD for new GPUs? Isn't Nvidia the big player in the market? Well, one thing here that we can really make clear is that AMD absolutely came out of nowhere in terms of the CPU market and made Intel basically get on their knees, because Intel for years was just having iterative updates where they didn't really have any revolutionary products. So out of nowhere comes AMD with their Ryzen, first with the first generation, second, finally culminating in the third generation Ryzen that absolutely blew the doors off anything that Intel had in terms of price and performance. Now, people saw what that did to the price of Intel CPUs as well as the CPU market in general. Basically, to sum it up, we got really great multi-threaded performance like the 3950X for a lot cheaper than those type of processors used to be in the past, as well as on sort of the entry-level end, something like a 3600 was performing almost as well as Intel's previous 8700K. So that's extremely impressive. So what exactly do CPUs have to do with GPUs? Well, people are expecting AMD to try to pull off the same magic against Nvidia that they did against Intel. Now, people generally do like Nvidia because they were, for many years, like Intel, the only sort of player on the block, really. You couldn't really get other GPUs. AMD always had kind of disappointing offerings in the past, but they've greatly improved that. And Nvidia, while people don't really dislike them, they were a little bit peeved that the 20 series GPUs, like the prices definitely went up. In some cases, almost twice, like the 1080 Ti compared to the 2080 Ti was a massive, $400 to $500 increase in price. So people definitely got pretty peeved at that. While yes, the performance was definitely greater on the 2080 Ti, for the price premium people were paying, it didn't really make a lot of sense, especially considering that ray tracing, one of the preemptive technologies that Nvidia really lauded that was going to be revolutionary, never really panned out to be as interesting as people really thought. I mean, it's still in its early stages, it's developing, but initially it did have issues where they had to release driver updates like in Battlefield 5 in order to make it perform at an acceptable level while giving people the visual difference that they really desired, especially on a high-end card like a 2080 Ti. And while that has improved as of today, it's still not optimal, and a lot of people with 1080 Ti's are still really holding on to them because the performance hasn't been really that palpable. So now there definitely is a mood in the air that people want better GPU prices. The 10 series, like the 1080 Ti, I think in retrospect were priced pretty fairly. Like a 1080 Ti was $699. Now, people see the 2080 Ti at $1,200 and they don't really like that. And the Titan cards are even more expensive. So people want AMD to come in with their next generation or whatever high-end card that they're going to have and really beat Nvidia down just like they did with Intel, but in the GPU market space. What we know right now, and there have been some recent news items on this, I believe in their recent earnings call, they mentioned something about RDNA 2, which is going to be like a newer generation of the high-end AMD GPUs, what they're tentatively calling like Big Navi. It basically means something like a 5900 or a 5950 XT. We don't know what the naming scheme is going to be like yet, but we would assume that it's something that's either going to compete with the 2080 Ti, and then likewise, they will have something to go up against the 2080 Super. And now the only question that's going to remain here is really going to be of price. And also, don't forget, about driver optimization. AMD, while they've been doing a great job in terms of GPUs, it's no surprise that some of their launches have been, far from perfect, like the 5600 XT. A lot of people saw what they did. They released, last minute BIOS updates to go up against Nvidia's 2060 KO. Even their previous 5700 and 5700 XT graphics cards, they did have a couple of trouble spots there where they had to, release better optimized drivers. So we don't know if it's going to be completely smooth. Nvidia definitely is ahead in the game in terms of having optimized drivers that just work considerably better. So that's going to be a point that we really can't forget aside from the performance and price. So basically the main deal is going to come down to that price versus performance. Now AMD, they're not dumb. They have a lot of experience, especially in the CPU side in terms of pricing something against Intel. So they know that they're going to have to price a GPU that's going to be extremely competitive with a 2080 Ti, for example, with better performance. Because the main reason here is as soon as they release this, next generation RDNA 2, a Big Navi, whatever you want to call it, Nvidia is going to be waiting in the wings with something more powerful, the 3000 series GPUs. Now, there have been murmurs about a 3080 and a 3080 Ti being released, and while we can't really speculate on exactly what type of performance or price they're going to have, because even a lot of times these companies, believe it or not, they seem to change prices on the whim, at the last minute, but in general, we can expect them to have considerably more performance, and no doubt whatever AMD releases that's going to be competing in the high-end market, Nvidia is going to have a response for. The question here is, will AMD be able to beat Nvidia on price? Like, I'm sure people would love the performance of a 2080 Ti. Even if a 3080 Ti is out, they'll be fine with the performance of a 2080 Ti equivalent in an AMD if the price is considerably cheaper, like hundreds of dollars cheaper. Of course, if the price is on par or just a little bit less, everybody's going to go to Nvidia like they've been doing for years. So that's going to be really the key point. That's why it's hard to really discuss this early on, but we know that let's set a target for what AMD has to do. They have to produce a GPU that's going to compete with the 2080 Ti across the board in both performance and best it in price, I think by a considerable margin, because when those 3000 series GPUs come out that are definitely going to have, amazing performance, even if they're more expensive, if the AMD GPUs that come out don't make a convincing case against the current generation high-end cards like the 2080 Super, 2080 Ti, they're going to have no chance against the 3000 series, especially if Nvidia reacts with lower prices. That's something they could possibly do as well. Imagine a 3080 Ti at a cheaper price point than a 2080 Ti with much better performance than AMD's next generation Big Navi. So that's all going to be like a chess game. So more or less, that's where AMD is going to have to come in. They really need to beat the price of the 2080 Ti, by a large margin, including the 3080 Ti, whatever comes out later, while having really good performance and not to mention nicely optimized drivers. It doesn't matter if they have the specs on paper. If the GPUs aren't working in the real world with games, people are going to be frustrated and it's going to damage their reputation. So that's going to be something that they really have to work on. Just a very professional, high-end release with little problems, especially people that are buying expensive GPUs. They really can't afford to mess up drivers. So even if they take a little bit longer optimizing these, that's going to be essential because Nvidia is definitely a very worthy adversary and they've been innovating, a considerable amount the last few years. So it's going to be a lot tougher, I believe, than the Intel battle. So it's going to be something that they really have to keep their eyes on. But to summarize, 2020 looks like it's going to be an extremely exciting time for people in the GPU market and gamers in general. Whatever AMD comes out with, we know Nvidia is going to respond. So that's only going to make prices better as well as performance go through the roof, especially for 4K gaming, which I think it's probably going to become more and more popular, the more accessible it becomes. As popular as 1080p is now in 1440p, I mean, we always want to improve resolutions, and having very powerful GPUs at very good prices, it's going to be really the key to getting better visual performance. All right, guys, hope you enjoy the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think AMD is going to be able to beat Nvidia this year, or what do you think is going to end up happening? Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.